your emergency contact? Who should be notified in case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. A few months back, I had somebody ask me on one of the comments if I could share my interrogation technique that's not interrogation, or doesn't seem like an interrogation. During the course of my bid, I had the responsibility of making sure, like, the people that come off the bus that are riding in our car, the Asian Islander car, checks out. So my job was to interrogate them. And, I'm not the police, so I don't sit somebody in a room and ask them, pointed questions about this and that. The way I go about interrogating people is just through a conversation and listening to what they say, letting them tell their story. I was trying to think back about, these different conversations that I had with these individuals that come through, but I can't remember these conversations verbatim, so I didn't want to just, make stuff up. I'm not in the habit of making stuff up. But this past week, today is Monday, so a couple Saturdays ago, we had a block party over here, and during that block party, they had a white dude that came through, and he was trying to work in my shop. He said he's from, one of these white gangs out here. I'm not going to mention what gang he's from, but he wasn't from SAC. And he said he's done 22 years and all the rest of it. So I let him run through his story. One thing about when people are telling you the truth, you can ask them point blank at any time during the timeline, and the answer would be the same. You ask somebody, well, when did you go to the feds? I got to the feds in 2001. Where were you at in 2006? I can tell you I was in Beaumont. Where was you at in 2016? I can tell you I was in the shoe in Atwater on my way to Lewisburg. So no matter where you ask me during my timeline, if I'm telling you the truth, the answer is going to be the same. The thing about when people lie is that their story is going to vary, because they're telling you something, but they might go tell the next guy something. Then over a period of time, they forget who they told what to. So I'm going to use this conversation that I had with this dude for this episode. So he said he's been in and out of the state for the last 22 years, right? And when he was going through those things where he was telling me, he said he first ended up in Sheridan. Then from Sheridan, he got caught up and ended up in Atwater. He told me he was in Atwater in 2013. And then he said he was in Atwater from 2013 to 2017, then ended up in USP Florence in 2017. As you all know, I got to USP Florence around March of 2017 after I left Lewisburg. And if you guys been following my story, you would also know that during 2015, we had gotten a riot with the Mexicans. The whites and the Mexicans had gotten to it. Me and my homeboy Bryson jumped in to help the white dudes because one of them was one of the homies' cousin. So when he told me he was in Atwater 2013, I asked him, what happened during the riot? And as soon as I asked him, he changed the subject and moved on to other things. But another key indicator of someone that's not telling the truth is they tend to talk a lot. Like, if you guys notice, right now we have the election going on. So if you will follow the election, one of the candidates, Kamala Harris, when you ask her about a question and she's trying to avoid the answer for the truth, she goes into what they've termed word salad. She started talking about her middle class upbringing. She's talking about this, everything but answering the question. And it's the same way for anybody that's not telling you the whole story, right? But the one thing you have to be, I have a pretty good memory of faces. I'm not very good at names, but I recognize faces. And when you're telling me a story about your life, I have a pretty good memory of it. Like I'm not gonna probably not gonna remember it 5, 10 years down the road. Within a couple weeks or a month down the road, when we have that conversation again, I'm going to be able to pinpoint and notice where there's discrepancies in your story. So when we were having a conversation, because he wanted to work at my tattoo shop, he knows who I am, knows what I'm about. And I told him, like, I'm going to do a background check on you. If you say you're affiliated with this group, because, he's from one of those white Nazi gangs out here out of Utah. And, I don't have a problem with, the Saks, the Saw, or any of these white supremacist gangs that come out here out of Utah. I know some of them, grew up with some of them, and when we was in the pen, was cool with some of them. Some of them's on that racial line, some of them not. I don't really care. For me, it's how you conduct yourself in your interaction with me and other people around you. So I'm not speaking as a knock on him that he's part from these gangs or anything. That's to each of their own, right? But most of the dudes, the white dudes out of Utah, a lot of times when they were younger, they were running around, they were Crips or Bloods. But when they went out to the feds or out to the state joint, they got the pressure of being separated by race. And some of them, they can't, some of them don't stay true to what they were doing out here in the streets. And they sign up with the white gang because it makes it easier for them to do their time. And again, I have my opinion about that kind of stuff, but I'm not here to tell you how to survive the penitentiary because I've been there. I've spent over 24 years, and my whole life I've spent close to 30 years, 27, 28 years of being locked up. And I know firsthand how treacherous that environment is. So I don't knock anybody from doing whatever they need to do to survive. Because again, like I said in my last video, all gangsters ain't created equal. And just like men, we all are not equal. There's some things that we're able to adapt and handle better than others. But when it comes to a white dude in prison, it's rough for them, because you're on your own. You're trying to rock what you rock, but you got all these dudes pressing up on you to join their white gang or to run white or all the rest of it. And if you're not ready to die for it, if you're not ready to kill for your independence, then you're going to sign up just so that you can survive the environment. And again, when it comes to things like that, homie, I'm not here to throw shade on anybody about how they do their time, about how they make it home, even though if I agree with it or not. So we had this conversation, and I'm going to run through the story that he told me first. He said he was in Sheridan, and he got caught up in Sheridan, ended up transferring to Atwater in 2013. He said he was in Atwater in 2013 all the way to 2017 until he got transferred to Florence USP. Now, if anybody's ever been in Atwater from 2008 to 2015, I say 15 because at the end of 2015, I ended up going to the SHU. So anybody that was in Atwater from 2008 to 2015, you would know who I am. When you come out, I ran a poker table on the yard for 7 years. I was the only one in Atwater that had a consistent poker table for 7 years straight. I, I changed up from credit game to cash game. I have to be fluid with the business depending on the people that I have on the yard, because people are always changing out. And also, when you're a gambler and you're not very good, your money's not going to last very long. So, but every day I'm on the yard running a poker table. Then the last 3 years I was there, we ventured into the dice game. The homie Baby T came from another place and brought the craps game over there, like casino style. I ran tickets. I pretty much controlled all the aspect of gambling. So I asked him, what unit was you in when you were in Atwater? He tells me 2B. Now the reason 2B raises a red flag for me is because when the riot jumped off with the whites and the Mexicans, every unit popped off. Every single unit, every yard, every place in the facility except for 2B. Right? 2B had their shot caller at the time called Chino. He's Armenian, but Armenians, for some reason, when they come in, they run white. 2B was the only unit that didn't pop off. So when I ask him, well, who was all in the unit with you in 2B, he tells me a dude named Rooster from ABT. Now I know Rooster, but I don't know Rooster from Atwater. I know Rooster from Florence USP. At the time I was there, the ABTs couldn't walk the yard in Atwater because they had just got into it with the independent whites in Pollock. And plus, Atwater's a California yard, and a lot of California dudes don't really like the Texas dude when it comes to whites or Mexican. The California Mexicans don't like the Texas Mexicans. And same thing with the whites. California whites don't like Texas whites. And the main reason is because, when you say the brand, when you say AB, Aaron Brotherhood, what comes to mind is the California branch. They're the original. But through the course of time, people has adopted their name, created a gang out of it, and so on and so forth. I'm not taking anything away from any of the other branches of ABTs, of any of these other ones that adopted these names. But if anybody knows the system, if anybody knows anything about the Aaron brothers, they're of a different echelon, caliber of individuals. Like, you're not going to be able to receive the brand, the mark, if you're not one cold-blooded, hardcore dude, but not also just with the violence, but with the intelligence. These dudes are formidable dudes. So when he tells me that he was in 2B with Rooster, I already know he's lying. So part of the process of how I interrogate people is, like, again, I let them share their stories. I let them run through their whole story, whatever it is they're trying to share, whatever story they're trying to give, I let them run that. I let them run it. And I'm not at that moment in time coming back to be like, oh, you said this here, you said that here, you said that here. No. So when in the penitentiary, I let a few days go by. And like, if I got somebody to come in on the yard and they give me their story about where they've been, who they are, and all that, I don't make any judgment, but I remember everything they say. So later on, maybe a couple of days later, and I'm on the yard with them, and we're just kicking it, where, when you're in an interrogation setting, they're going to be on point about telling you their story because they know that you're there, you're focused on them, and they got to sell their lie to you. But when you catch them off guard a couple of days later when they're playing basketball or some or whatever, and you bring something up, like, if somebody say they were in Sheridan at this period in time, and if I know somebody over there in Sheridan, I'd be like, oh yeah, when you was over there, did you know so-and-so? And if they're running Agent Islander, the person that I'm picking up, the person that I'm asking them about is somebody they would know because that guy would be running the yard and everybody that's Agent or Islander would have to be introduced to him. But, like I say, when you catch them off guard, when you catch them in a different setting, they might not remember that they told you they was over there. So back to the conversation that I had with this dude. I asked him, where he's been. He also told me that he was in Florence, right? But he got beat off the yard because he smoked spice. He said he's not a dropout. He said he's never done anything foul or anything like that. But while I was in Florence, I heard his name. And the guy that I heard the name that matched his name did get beat up off the yard. But he didn't get jumped. There was another member of his gang that was over there, a dude named Stryker. And that's the homie from Utah. So when he hit the yard, word got out that he had one of his brothers over there and that his brother was X'd out. And a couple of weeks later, Stryker ended up punishing this dude and sending him off the yard. So when he mentioned his name, it rung a bell. But I didn't see the beatdown. I never met the dude because in Florence, the yard was split. You only wrecked with your block. So if you live in another block, you might never see him unless you go to Education or the library or something like that. You might not see anybody else from another unit. So it's easy for people to hide when it comes to yards like that. So I let him run through his story. He came here on Saturday. We chopped it up. I let him run through his story. And I told him, well, come back Monday and we'll see what we can do. Because he said he's pretty good at tattooing. And the thing that I'm doing here over here at Evolution Tattoo at my shop is trying to provide people with opportunity, people like me. I'm not judging you just because you've been in prison. But at the same time, I'm not having no busters around me. I don't fuck with rats. I don't fuck with sex offenders. And I don't fuck with dropouts. When I say dropout, it's not about dudes that are done with the life and trying to be better. Dropouts are dudes that bumped heads with their people because they did something foul or whatever, or they didn't toe the line and they got X'd out. I'm from where I'm from. I'm still in good standing with my homies. I'm not active, but I'm not a dropout. I've done everything that I was supposed to do, and I just want to live a better life. I didn't ask the homie for permission to live a better life, to do something different, but I've earned my way to live my life the way I want to live it. And they respected that. That's the reason why I'm able to be on here, on YouTube, running my mouth. That's why I'm able to do events, and my homies and other people from different hoods around Salt Lake City come through and show love because I've done everything that I'm supposed to. So that's the difference between somebody that's earned their stripes and has moved on with their life and to somebody that busted out, right? So come Monday, we're having the same conversation. He's sitting right here next to me because we were over here at the shop. He's sitting right here. And now I'm asking pointed questions about where he's been, how long was he on this yard, how long was he on that yard. Now, for you to be able to get through all the bullshit One, you'd have to know what the procedures are, what the rules are. When you go to the penitentiary, within the first month, you're going to see your counselor, your unit manager. They're going to review you. They're going to let you know how many points you got, and they're going to let you know when you can request a transfer. Every yard you hit, your unit team is going to want more than a year from you before your points drop. Usually you stay there for 12 to 18 months before you can get transferred to another location. That's the rules. That's the rules for me. That's the rules for other people that I know around me. So when I come across somebody and they tell me they've been on 3 different yards within the last year, that's a red flag. Because the only way you're leaving those yards if you got ran off or if somebody checked you in. And if you got ran off or checked in, then obviously there's something foul about you. While he's telling me this story, when he told me he lived in 2B in Atwater, and that one of the white dudes that he mentioned was Rooster from ABT, well, I know Rooster can't walk the yard over there in Atwater, because at the time, ABTs didn't walk the California yards. But I also know Rooster personally when I ended up in Florence. So when I had mentioned that, I said, Rooster from ABT? He said, yeah. I said, Rooster can't walk the yard in Atwater. I had Florence and Atwater mixed up. You don't get the penitentiaries mixed up. If everybody's been locked up, you know that even if you want to erase the memories of all the stuff that's happened, where you've been, you can't. It's in there. So going back to the interrogation technique, that's not an interrogation. Basically, is just having a conversation with somebody, asking them where they've been, getting their whole story on the first run, and then coming back, doubling back, and asking them pointed questions when they don't feel like they're being interrogated, just through a conversation. So my interrogation technique is just having a conversation, but remembering everything they're telling me. And then when I ask them to retell it again at a later time, when we're not in an interrogation setting, that's when I know if what they've been telling me was the truth. Because you guys go look at my videos, all the stories that I've shared with you, no matter how many times you ask me about any of these stories, when I tell you, the story is going to be exactly the same. The words I use might not be verbatim, but the story is going to be exactly the same. I got locked up in 98, and up in Florence in 2001, went to Victorville in 2004, ended up in Beaumont in 2006, went to Atwater 2008, Lewisburg in 2016, USP Florence in 2017. So no matter where you jump in that timeline, my story is going to be consistent because it's the truth. When it's not the truth, things might not, match up. So come Saturday, just this last Saturday, just a couple of days ago, he came by the shop. But by this time, I already did my background check on him, and the things that I got back really confirmed my opinion of his story. So the thing is, here in Utah, I know everybody. When I say I know everybody, I don't know every single person out here personally, but if you're running in the street and if you're from any of these gangs out here that was formulated in the 90s or that was active in the 90s, I know somebody from each of those organizations. And if I don't know somebody from that specific organization, I know somebody that knows somebody. So within a few phone calls, I can reach the people that I'm trying to contact to ask about anybody out here that I need to ask about. And everybody that knows me, when they come through, I start out the conversation like, I don't fuck with buses, I don't fuck with rats, I don't fuck with sex offenders, and I'm gonna do a check on you. I let it be known up front because I'm really not a deceptive dude. I don't know how to be a con man. And if I tell somebody up front that this is the things that I do, then they can make a decision if they still want to try to pass themselves off as somebody that's kosher, or they can recognize that I probably shouldn't be around this dude and go on their way. And most people that don't check out after the first encounter, I never hear from them again because they know when I tell you I'm gonna do a background check on you, I do a background check on you. So when it comes Saturday, I'm in the shop trying to organize some stuff, and one of the artists comes out and say, "Hey, old boy's over here looking for you." So I come out. He was up here in the break room watching TV with some of my other artists. I come out and I ask him, I say, "Hey, let me talk to you." And we walk outside my fence. If you can see over here, this is my break room over here, and that's my gate over there. So I walk outside on the other side of the gate. He follows me out there. He's like, "What's up?" I told him, I do a check, right? He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you didn't check out." And he got upset. He's like, "What? Man, what the fuck you talking about? I ain't never rat on nobody. I ain't no sex offender. Whoop-de-whoop, whoop-de-whoop." And he's like this close to my face. But I expected this reaction. I don't go into any encounter not expecting or not ready to deal with it. So we're outside the fence and we're talking. He's like, "Man, I've done 20 something years. Whoop, I told you where I've been." For me, there's no reason to go back and forth. It's because one, I've already formulated my opinion that his story doesn't check out before I even contacted the people I needed to contact. And so anything I say, he's just gonna deny it and rebuttal it and all the rest of it. So there's no need to waste my breath on it. But I know you don't check out, you know. But after his rant, he accepted it because you can lie to yourself, you can lie to everybody that you meet, and you can believe your lies. But if anybody's got any common sense, anybody that knows your people, know the program, they're gonna be able to spot it out. You know, so going back to something that maybe you guys can apply to your life, especially if you're running around and you meet somebody new. They're gonna tell you your story. They're gonna try to sell themselves to you. Like I said, when you meet somebody that just talk, 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 they're trying to cover up something. Just like a hustler, a three-card molly, or a magician. When they're trying to deceive you with a trick, they're trying to distract you with their mouth while their hands are moving. Because now you're paying attention to what they're listening, what they're saying, and you're distracted while they're doing whatever they do with their hand. But it's the same way. It's just a natural instinct for liars and con men to do that. Con men, they're not stupid. You know, they're intelligent for them to pass off a con, especially to the average citizen. It's because, they're able to pick out what might interest you, what your needs are, and they play on that. So if you're in the street and you got somebody that you run across and that's trying to fuck with you, and you don't know anything about them, you ask for their history, where they've been, where they grew up, where they went to school, Now I know we're like undercover cops now. They can go in and wipe everything clean and create a whole new background so that when you get on the computer or whatever you check, everything seems to check out. But if I live out here in Utah and somebody comes to me trying to get in with what I'm doing and tells me his story, where he went to school, this and this and that, I'm gonna know where every schools are. I'm gonna know some people that went to these schools, and even though they can go in and change it in the yearbook, because they have all these technology, they can't change the people that went over there, that went to those schools. And I can contact these different people that went to whatever high school that they say they went to and ask, hey, did you know about this dude? Or even those dudes, they'll have the original yearbook, you know, because there's a lot of people out here that are getting infiltrated by these undercovers, by these CIs. But a lot of times, the way they infiltrate you is through somebody you know. Okay? Now think about that. Because a lot of people, they just can't walk up to you and say, hey man, my name is so-and-so, I want to fuck with you. No, they have to be introduced by somebody. Now, a lot of times these dudes running around the streets get caught up somewhere that nobody knows about, but they don't want to go to prison, so they cut a deal. And their deal is not for them to go back into the organization and wear a wire on their people or anything. Their deal might be to bring somebody in to introduce them to the organization, because now the organization personally knows this guy, and as far as they're concerned, this guy is solid. So they're going to take his word for it and allow them to be introduced to somebody they brought in. But at the end of the day, man, you have to trust your instinct. You know how things are supposed to function. Like I always tell you, when certain things happen, it demands a certain type of reaction. So when somebody deviates from that, then you know that there's something off. So you have to trust your instinct, because if you don't, if you allow your bias, if you allow your prejudice, if you allow your relationship, your love or respect for these individuals to overlook the small things, then you're going to set yourself up for failure. Because every single day, people tell you about themselves. You recognize it, you understand it. When you see something off, you understand it. But because of your relationship with this guy, because you grew up with him for all these years, or because you know him, you overlook it and you don't think that is important. But I promise you, like I said, I have a habit of saying, we all can make our lips move and make whatever sound comes out of it. But our actions and our deeds and how we respond to things, or the lack of response to certain things, is an indicator of who people really are. That being said, if somebody is lying to you about something small, you don't think they're going to lie to you about something bigger? If somebody shorts you on a few dollars, you don't think they're going to burn you when later on there's more money involved? So keep in mind, when you're trying to interrogate somebody, let them run through their story. Then later on, you come back and you pick out little sections to ask about and see if their stories stay consistent. And if it deviates, then he's lying. Because if you're lying about one aspect of your life, you're probably lying about everything else too. Welcome to the USP.